All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, let's go ahead and get this out the way, man. Thank goodness we drafted Brian Robinson in the 3rd round, man. Everything we had to do in that draft as far as trading back to end up getting him, everybody's looking like geniuses because Brian Robinson is the MVP of that game, plain and simple. Of course, I'm going to be screaming DARON PAYNE all this video as well. You know, with Street Scores videos, anytime we're doing a game review for a game, especially after a victory like that, we're going to go position group by position group. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about Taylor Heinicke and we're going to talk about the offensive line, the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Then we go to the defense. We're going to talk about defensive line, linebackers, secondary, injuries. We got to talk about coaches, Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, all of that. We're going to talk about all of that throughout this video, but we're going to take our time and go bit by bit to make sure we cover everything. But also, let's go ahead and get this out the way. Shouts out to Ron Rivera for his 100th career win in the NFL as a head coach. That's big. Also, we won that for Sean Taylor and his family. That was the Sean Taylor's memorial at the stadium reveal victory. And also, man, we finally won in the all-black uniforms. There was starting to be like a premature curse thing starting to come up. We were only 0-2. You know, that's not enough to truly know if the black jerseys were a curse or not. But we finally broke that. It's 1-2 with the black jerseys, so no longer a curse. We made it happen. We've somehow found a way to win in spite of the quarterback, in spite of a lot of things that happened in this game. We're just finding a way to win games ugly. Just like how the Giants were winning games ugly in like the beginning of the season, the first like 7 games. We're starting to become that team that just finds a way to win ugly. If it's a turnover, if it's somehow, you know, the Tress way, finding a way to even though it wasn't really an acting job, he really got ran into, but he did a good job of selling it. If it's us as our punter selling a hit for us to get a first down to put the game away so we can run out the clock, if it's plays made by the defensive line batting the ball up and a corner going to go get the game-winning interception, it's just a bunch of little stuff that we're just finding a way to win. We're making the plays that matter. Again, we did a lot of things to give the Falcons the game, and you could definitely admit the Falcons definitely sold this game at times, but you also got to give the Commanders credit for winning this game. And of course, throughout the week, especially with us now on another win streak and things like that, and we are now 7-5 and strong playoff contenders. Of course, I'm gonna do my video later on this week that y'all seem to love. It's the ones that's usually the most people are watching, where I go around the NFL, ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC, Chris Sims, Stephen A. Smith, all of those guys, and you know, we see what they have to say about us now that we're winning games and things like that. I'm gonna put that video together. And Brian, I can't remember his name right now, but Brian that does the film sessions for our team, and he's always hyping us up. He's been on the Commanders train since even before the national media has been, and of course Chris Sims is gonna tell it like it is, and he gives us our credit as well. So I'm gonna work on that video later on, but today this is the Rico Street Scores breakdown of everything that went down in this game, man. We're not just gonna, I know we won, but we're not just gonna gloss over the bad and just only talk about the good. We're gonna talk about the good and the bad from everybody, even if it comes from the same players, because Taylor Heinicke had some bad, but he also has some good. Overall was pretty bad, and you can definitely say we won in spite of him, but he has some good as well. So anybody that had a good game, we're gonna talk about the bad things they also did. Anybody that had a bad thing, we're gonna try to talk about the good things they had as well. But of course, we're gonna tell it like it is. Again, kind of like what Chris Sims does, where we're gonna talk about everything that happened in this game. Again, we're gonna go position group by position group. So man, stay in your seats for this one, because this one's gonna be really interesting. A lot of things went down in this game that a lot of people may not have even noticed. So we're gonna break down everything that happened in this game. But of course, man, shouts out to Brian Robinson. First 100-yard rushing game. We couldn't have needed it any more this game than any other game, man. We don't win that game unless Brian Robinson's out there breaking 5 tackles to get a first down. Like, in the offensive line, we're going to talk about them. They played better today, but a lot of that was Brian Robinson literally looking like his Alabama brother Derrick Henry at times, bro. Like, some of them plays, I may have to put together a Brian Robinson highlights video and upload that too, because I don't think y'all understand how dominant he was today. He was the better running back. We're going to talk about that, though, because it was kind of interesting that Jonathan Williams was getting carries over Antonio Gibson at times. Was it an injury, or was Jonathan Williams just simply the hot hand at the time? So we're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every game day like today, where I do a live stream, live play-by-play analysis of everything going on in the game for both the Commanders and the opponent. Of course, we laugh together, we learn together, all of it, man. It's a really interactive experience. I try to reply to every comment, especially the comments where it's channel members or people that donate. But I try. It is a goal to literally read every comment, but we get to a certain point where today we had like 700 and something people in the stream chatting at once. You know, I can't read everything. I wish I could, though. I really do. I actually be feeling a little bad when I don't get to every comment, because I really wish I could read literally every single one. But I guess that's the positive side of your channel growing. You know, you just can't read every comment. But that's definitely, if y'all remember, if y'all some of the OGs that's been here forever, it used to be a goal where I read every comment in live streams, but we're to the point where I can't really do that. But still, either way, make sure you pull up to every Commanders game day, regular season. I'm speaking it into existence postseason as well. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, man, so let's go ahead and start with the offense, of course. Let's just start with Scott Turner. Let's start on a positive note, because I usually start with the quarterback, and that's going to be quite negative. To be completely objective, again, Taylor Heinicke's from the Metro Atlanta area. If there's anybody on this team I want to be great, it's him. I was hoping Jamin Davis would ball out, and boy, the first half was literally his half on defense. He was our best defensive player, it felt like, in the first half. He's from the Metro Atlanta area. Montez Sweat finally got that sack at the end. He's from the Metro Atlanta area. And then Antonio Gibson, I was hoping he had himself a crazy game. All of my Atlanta Commanders players, I love them and I want them to be the best, but objectively, Taylor Heinicke is not the answer. We're going to get to that later. Let's start on a positive note. Scott Turner called his tail off. Wasn't the most complete play calling game today, but it was a great play calling day. I mean, every one of our touchdowns were great Scott Turner play calls. Now, one of them, the first one, was a great Brian Robinson play. Ran two people over to get into the touchdown, but I love the fact that defenses don't expect Brian Robinson to catch a pass out of the backfield. Nobody was really even near him when he caught it. You could tell they weren't expecting it, and then he did the rest to carry him the rest of the way. But at the very least, even if Brian Robinson wasn't Brian Robinson and didn't carry himself all the way through two people to get that touchdown, it still would have been some positive yardage on a goal line situation, red zone situation. So I love that play call, period, even if Brian Robinson doesn't get that touchdown. But the fact that he did makes it even better. And then the John Bates touchdown, he's clearly schemed open. Nobody is accusing John Bates of being Travis Kelce or Darren Waller or any of these guys. He's completely schemed open by Scott Turner. A lot of it has to do with the run game, but that's also Scott Turner as well. We've been running the ball probably at least 40 times. I don't know the stat exactly, but it feels like we've run the ball at least 40 times for the past 3 games that we've won. We know Taylor Heinicke can't win you games, so you're going to have to run the ball and make it easier for him, and it's been working. It's been a winning formula. We have an elite defense. I mean, today it was a little hard because we didn't have Benjamin St-Juste and Cole Holcomb. And honestly, with the Falcons not being a good throwing team, they try to run the ball. They're honestly one of the better running teams in the NFL. And not even just like actual efficiency. They just straight up run on first down, run on second down, run on third down. You saw how much they were doing read option with Marcus Mariota and all of that. They literally don't want to throw the ball if they don't have to. And they didn't have Kyle Pitts. Their first game without Kyle Pitts. So we knew that they didn't want to throw the ball. So not having Benjamin St-Juste is always big for us, but not having Cole Holcomb against a team like this that all they want to do is run the ball, and John Bostic and David Mayo out there looking crazy, we really missed him. But yeah, man, I mean, even with the injuries, the defense still played very well. Our offensive line and the run game were going crazy today. Really proud of the offensive line. Can't wait to talk about them. But Taylor Heinicke, man, he's not playing well necessarily, but Scott Turner's calling a good enough game to get guys open. Again, if John Bates is wide open for a touchdown, that's Scott Turner. That was schemed open. You got to give him, at the very least, credit for those touchdowns that we had on offense, man. You got to. The only 2 touchdowns that we have, you definitely got to give him credit for both of those, man. And we're definitely going to break down everything soon. We're going to get to quarterback, and I want to talk about Scott Turner a little bit more, but I almost forgot to give y'all the stats. I normally try to give y'all the stats in the beginning. Taylor Heinicke was 14 of 23 with 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And again, both of those touchdowns, Brian Robinson willed his way to that touchdown, and John Bates was schemed open by Scott Turner. Taylor Heinicke just had to not mess it up. So, like, honestly, Taylor Heinicke did have 2 touchdowns, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Marcus Mariota wasn't much better. I mean, at the very least, he was running the ball well. He had 49 yards rushing, but he 15 for 25 on throwing, 174 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and then that game-losing interception, which really honestly wasn't his fault like that. Taylor Heinicke's interception was clearly his fault. It was thrown in a quadruple coverage, not triple coverage, not double coverage. It was literally 4 Falcons players closer than any receiver. I didn't even know live who he was trying to throw to. And at the same time, the Falcons ran for 167 yards. We ran for 176, but theirs was split up more evenly. I mean, Al Guerrero, that's how you pronounce his name, had 54. Cordero Patterson felt like the most dominant rusher on their team, but he only had 52. It just felt like all of his plays went for big yardages. It was either a big play or like no gain, 2 yards at max. It was weird. Marcus Mariota off the read option was killing us at 49 yards rushing. But on our side, even though we only had 9 more rushing yards than them, Brian Robinson had 105. 51 more yards than any Falcons rusher. I mean, it was literally his game. He carried the team on his back. Antonio Gibson had 32. Jonathan Williams had 22. Curtis Samuel had 13. Curtis Samuel is always going to be involved in the passing game and the running game, even though today I don't think he was targeted even once today. But Terry McLaurin led our team with 48 receiving yards. Zacchaeus led our team with 91 rushing yards. And I knew coming into this game we were going to focus so much on Drake London that Zacchaeus was going to end up being the one with a good game. And it sucks because I didn't do a preview video before the game to go ahead and stamp it, but I literally felt that way when I was loading up the stream and doing my thumbnail and everything for the live stream that I just did before this video. I literally was like, man, watch Zacchaeus. Watch we focus on stopping Cordero Patterson, Marcus Mariota, and Drake London, and then Zacchaeus is the one having a great game. He had 91 yards receiving. He had the most receiving yards out of any receiver, tight end, running back, or anybody in this game by at least 43 yards with Terry McLaurin in second with only 48 off 6 targets, 4 receptions. But he had a 26-yarder, which was really good. He started the game off first possession with a nice little catch and yards go. But yeah, man, I just wanted to give y'all those stats to kind of put it in perspective how this game was going. I mean, let's go first downs. They had 18 to our 20. Third downs, they were 4 of 10. We were 5 of 12. Not much better, not much worse, really. We had 314 total yards to the 332. They had more passing yards than us, especially that final drive, but we had more rushing yards. It was really just that one big play at the end where like all of the Zacchaeus yards, all of that came from. We had more rushing yards as well. We had 4 penalties for 28 yards. They had 2 for 20. And then turnover wise, we each had 1. Both of our quarterbacks had interceptions. But one of the biggest keys to the game, we won time of possession. They had 26 minutes, 51 seconds. We had 33 minutes, 9 seconds. That's huge. And we're going to talk about special teams a little later with your boy Joey Sly missing that PAT, giving us a heart attack because we should have been up 7, shouldn't have been up 6. That shouldn't even been like a potential game-losing situation. At worst, game tying. But we'll get to that. But yeah, Scott Turner, man, called his tail off. There were a couple of plays where it was like, what was that? That was stupid. You know what I'm saying? He had like maybe like 3 of those. But overall, today, we win this game because Scott Turner and Brian Robinson. You can argue Brian Robinson was MVP. Scott Turner's probably 1B maybe. Brian Robinson 1A, Scott Turner 1B type of thing. I mean, Scott Turner called his tail off today. He's been having some really good play calling games 3 in a row right now. And that's why I'm so worried about Taylor Heinicke, which takes me to Taylor Heinicke, because if the defense doesn't play elite or near elite, if our running game, if Brian Robinson doesn't carry this team on his back, if Scott Turner goes back to how he was before this 3-game win streak, like what happens then? Is Taylor Heinicke good enough to win this game for us? I doubt it, and that's what worries me about him. He's so inconsistent. That's what I'm really worried about. Any game that all of the stars don't align on defense, running game, offensive line, play calling, guys making plays here and there, penalties kind of bailing us out at times. I mean, they were honest penalties, but thank goodness the refs saw it, because the refs don't see a lot of penalties that happen to us from other teams a lot of the times. They just don't even think to call it. They just hold their whistle like, yeah, they'll be all right. They're not destined to win anyway. What's the point of us even giving them calls that they deserve? You know what I'm saying? So it takes for the stars to align for Taylor Heinicke to win games like this on the last play of the game by the defense getting an interception. This game, by the way our defense played, only allowing the Falcons to technically only score 13 points, by the way that Brian Robinson had the game of his life, the offensive line had one of their better games of the season, and for us to only win by 6 points in a way like that, is Taylor Heinicke is the only reason we're in these situations. Just like the Colts game. He went crazy the last 5 minutes to win the game for us, but he was the reason that we were even down to that point and only had 7 points on offense up to the last 5 minutes of that game. I'm telling you, other than the Eagles game and that Texans game, and even that Texans game, he wasn't perfect. He was smooth. He was fairly consistent. And then the Eagles game, he had that one really bad play, but you could argue that was his best game by far this season. Outside of that, we've literally been winning in spite of Taylor Heinicke. You got to be be honest with yourself. You have to. I don't care how much of a Taylor Heinicke fan you are. I don't care how much you enjoy winning. Right now, we're winning in spite of him. And I hate the fact that people, just because we're winning and just because we're just getting the bare minimum at quarterback and it's enough to win games, people don't want to risk that for something better. I guess our fan base is so used to losing and being sorry that when we're average, they don't want to let go. They're like, we're going to cling on to average. We're not letting this go. I don't care if there's potential that we could be great. Let's cling on to this average no matter what, because I don't want to know what it feels like to suck again type of thing. That's what it pretty much feels like with Taylor Heinicke. Again, I'm not trying to get on him too much because at the end of the day, we did win. But we're literally winning in spite of this guy. There's no way y'all don't see it. There's literally just no way at this point that you don't see that everything has to align correctly. And it's crazy too. I thought this may have been his best game ever. The first quarter, this was probably Taylor Heinicke's best first quarter this season. And then the second quarter was terrible. The third quarter was aight. Fourth quarter was It's just like, come on now, man. We need better from him, bro. If he can play better, we can definitely be Super Bowl contenders. And that's my other point with Taylor Heinicke. Taylor Heinicke is literally the only reason that NFL analysts or even us and our fan base don't see this team as Super Bowl contenders. Because honestly, look at our roster and compare it to other teams that you consider Super Bowl contenders. And what do we have that's just that much worse to where people are even disrespecting us and saying we're not even playoff contenders sometimes? Like Mina Kimes and Stephen A. Smith said recently in a video that they don't even think we should make the playoffs or something. Even if we do, what are we going to do in it type of thing? And it's just like, if you look at our defense is better than most, if not all, you can argue, than all of the especially when everybody's healthy. Cole Holcomb, which we may not see for the rest of the season. Hopefully we get Benjamin St-Juste back, but fully healthy, this defense is arguably the best defense in football. At least it's been playing like it for at least the half a season right now. This run game, I mean, we outran the Eagles. We basically just outran the Falcons, those were the two best running teams. We outran the Texans. You can argue those are the three best running teams in the NFL right now. Back to back to back to back. You can probably throw the 49ers in there. We'll see about them in a few weeks. But like, we're outrunning some of the best running teams. It's just like we have an elite a skill position core. These receivers, tight ends, and running backs. You know, Lamar Jackson would give a kidney to have what we have on offense as far as pieces around them. A lot of teams that people consider Super Bowl contenders, we can match up for them body for body on a skill position, especially receiving core wise and running backs with Brian Robinson running like this. And then when healthy, our tight end group is supposed to even be somewhat elite. It's literally, when you look at it, you can maybe say offensive line because they're inconsistent. You can maybe say coaching, because we're going to talk about Ron Rivera and his time management and the situational awareness. Awful. You can maybe say against Scott Turner, inconsistent play calling, even though these past 3 games he's been excellent. Like, what is our weakness? And only thing you can point at is a quarterback. That's literally the only thing holding us back. Love you, Taylor Heinicke. Again, love seeing somebody from the Metro Atlanta area out here winning games for my favorite NFL team. Love it. And then my Georgia Bulldogs are doing what they're doing. I should be in heaven right now. But just the fact that we're having these nail biters and heart attacks and heart palpitations all the way to the last second of the game, the only thing that you can point at that is an obvious glare on this team is quarterback right now. Linebacker as well. If I had to say our top 3 needs in the draft, if you want to move on from Kendall Fuller, which would be hard to do because of all of the plays that he's making, pick 6 last week and then game saving interception this week. But if you wanted to save $10 million, that's an option. But at this point, I don't think we do. And as long as Benjamin St-Juste is healthy, he could be a cornerback 1. I mean, so outside of corner, because I just don't, at this point, I don't really see that. It's guard, offensive line, period, really, honestly. Quarterback, very obviously, and linebacker. That's it. And Jamin Davis is balling, and if Cole Holcomb were healthy, we wouldn't be so worried about it. But it's the fact that Cole Holcomb is hurt. Now we have no depth, so it's exposing our linebacker group right now. But then at the end of the day, Derek Forrest and Cameron Curl are stepping up to make plays in the run game. And John Ridgeway is helping immensely in the run game and protecting the linebackers because he's eating double teams, allowing Jonathan Allen and DARON PAYNE to get one-on-ones. And so Jamin Davis' job is still ridiculously difficult. He's still our only good linebacker out there all the time. And there's even some plays where he's literally the only linebacker on the field sometimes. And at the end of the day, he's still getting it done, and John Ridgeway is a big reason for that. Can't wait to get Fadarian Mathis back because he's supposed to be John Ridgeway but better. So that's going to be crazy. But yeah, man, like, honestly, if you look at this team top to bottom and you compare every position group to another team's position group that are considered Super Bowl contenders, and try to figure out why we're not even considered playoff contender to some people. It is literally quarterback the most glaring reason. Again, linebacker, offensive line, you can throw in there as well. But Jamin Davis balled out. You could argue had the game of his life today, because without him in the first half, we're definitely trailing. He made some game-saving tackles, literally touchdown-saving tackles in the first half, like more than once. And then offensive line played well today, and we're gonna talk about them soon. So what's left? Taylor Heinicke. And then also after that, let's just go ahead and go to the running backs. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, man. What more can I say? Jonathan Williams even had himself a day. 4 carries, 22 yards. Antonio Gibson, it was kind of weird because I was starting to think like maybe Antonio Gibson's hurt, because we stopped running with him. It was at a point where Jonathan Williams was just getting carry after carry after carry. Maybe it was like a hot hand thing, because it looked like Antonio Gibson was healthy when he finally went back after those Jonathan Williams carries. He looked good. But today was the Brian Robinson day. 18 carries to Antonio Gibson's 9 and Jonathan Williams 4. It was the Brian Robinson day. And shouts out to Antonio Gibson, because he had some good returns in the kickoff game as well. So he still impacted this game quite a bit, even if he didn't have a great running day. But Antonio Gibson had himself a day, man. 105 yards rushing on 18 carries is insane, man. How many yards per carry is that, man? Hold on, let's go ahead and do that math right now. This is probably his highest yards per carry right now in a game. Yeah, 5.83 yards per carry is insane. That's his best game by far, easily. And I've been saying it, even when he came back from recovering from a gunshot wound, well, 2 of them actually, he wasn't 100% himself. He didn't have the power, he didn't have the speed or nothing like that, and it just seemed like every game he was getting better. It was like the Eagles game. Okay, we're starting to finally see the toughness. Oh, the Texans game, we're starting to see a little bit more toughness and a little bit more speed. Then today was just overall complete stardom in fantasy next week type of game. I mean, he balled out today, man. And then he even had a receiving touchdown. To add on to 105 rushing, to have 20 yards receiving and a touchdown off of 2 receptions is huge. With 3 targets, this is his best game of his career in both ways. Rushing yards wise, his first 100-yard rushing game, and this is a career high for him in receiving yards with 20, which isn't a lot, but he had a touchdown again. He had to run somebody over for that. Brian Robinson's MVP of the game. I don't even know much more to say, honestly. Like, what else is there to say about Brian Robinson? Maybe I'll get some advanced statistics throughout the week and I'll present them in another video. But plain and simple, the eye test says Brian Robinson is that guy. Plain and simple. Thank goodness we got him. Antonio Gibson and Jonathan Williams, again, I appreciate everything they contributed. Moving on, wide receiver wise, Terry McLaurin is still unguardable, uncoverable. He should have had 100 yards today. Taylor Heinicke literally missed him on plays where he was wide open at times, like the widest of open. The one where he threw that interception after we got the ball back on like the 45-yard line, should have came away with at the very least 3 points before halftime. Terry McLaurin, I think, was like wide open or something like that, or it was another play where he like checked it down to Curtis Samuel for like a little gain, and Terry McLaurin was wide open on that play, and instead of us having to punt the ball, which I think was the possession before the Falcons went on that long drive to almost end the game right there with the DARON Payne Kendall Fuller play to save the game. I think the possession before that, it was like 3rd and 7 or something. He dumped it off to Curtis Samuel for like a 4 or 5 yard short like throw where I think Curtis Samuel had to like carry 2 guys to even get that many yards. Terry McLaurin was wide open that play. Terry McLaurin, I know he was mad today. Then the touchdown where, I mean, shouts out to Taylor Heinicke for dodging pressure, but at that point he was wide open. I mean, he didn't even really have a defender near him, so he could have easily have taken his time and threw the ball better. Overthrows Terry McLaurin wide open on the side of the end zone, not even the corner. He had the whole side. You could have threw it short, you could have threw it to the right, you could have threw it slightly over, just not that far over. We would have been straight, man. So I know Terry McLaurin should have had 100 yards and at least a touchdown today, literally. So I feel sorry for him. You see 6 targets, 4 receptions, 48 yards. You think he wasn't having himself a game. Nobody on the Falcons could guard him. You saw in that one, it was like 3rd and 1 or something. We threw a 3-yard pass to Terry McLaurin with AJ Terrell man on man. Terry McLaurin was open all day. I can't wait to look at the all 22 to see how open he was, because I feel like he was open all of the time. Taylor Heinicke just wasn't able to get him the ball. And then De'Ami Brown had that amazing catch that Whew, we thank goodness for that, because I think that was on the touchdown drive with Brian Robinson, I believe, early in the game. That was a huge catch. Oh yeah, we had our first opening, we had our first drive with an opening touchdown since week 1 against Jacksonville. That needs to be noted, and I think that De'Ami Brown great catch while it was raining, huge play. 1 catch for 17 yards. You look at that, you don't think he had much of an impact. That play was huge, because I think that may have been on a 3rd down to convert a 1st down or something like that, and I believe that led to the Brian Robinson touchdown. So man, De'Ami Brown, thank goodness. I thought once Taylor Heinicke became the quarterback, De'Ami Brown wasn't going to matter, because he hasn't been able to separate underneath. He can only get open deep, and Taylor Heinicke can't throw a deep ball to save his life. For sometimes it seems like he's had like 3 moments this year where he actually threw a really good deep ball, but for the most part, it's just been paper airplanes. Oh yeah, and I can't forget the play where my boy Taylor Heinicke threw it to, it was either Brian Robinson or it was Antonio Gibson. Another bad vision play. He threw it to Antonio Gibson. 2 people are covering Antonio Gibson. It's like 3rd and 3, and it ends up being like a loss of 1. I remember that. It was sometime in the first half, I believe, and there were like 2 people open that play, wide open for a 1st down. He dumped it off to Antonio Gibson with 2 people. If 2 people, do the math, 2 people are covering Antonio Gibson, there's at least 4 defensive linemen. That's 6. And then I think he was getting blitzed by like a linebacker, I believe. So at most they had 5 guys covering Terry, Jahan, Curtis Samuel, maybe even Logan Thomas out there. I will take those chances. If 2 people are covering Antonio Gibson, somebody else is open. Even without looking at the all 22, I assume somebody else was open. And then somebody in the chat confirmed that I think it was Jahan or Curtis Samuel or both of them that were open that play. It was just bad vision. But going back to the receivers, man, nobody else really had an opportunity. Jahan Dotson had 1 target, no catch. And then that's really it. Curtis Samuel did all of his work in the run game. Shouts out to Scott Turner for those play calls. Again, I guess that technically wasn't a throw. It was like a dump off to Curtis Samuel, but either way, it was just not a great game from Taylor Heinicke. But shouts out to Scott Turner for carrying the load. Him and Brian Robinson carrying the team. Tight end wise, love that play by Scott Turner to get John Bates open. He had some great blocks today. Some of Brian Robinson's best runs were off of John Bates being the lead blocker, pull from the right side, ran all the way to the left side, lead blocker. Oh, shouts out to De'Ami Brown for that play as well too. He was able to seal the edge, which allowed John Bates to go to the next level to block like a safety or something. And that's where Brian Robinson had that run down the sideline for probably, I think that was his 26-yard run, his longest run of the day, I believe, or whatever. His 21-yard run, my fault. That was the longest run of the day. I think it was the John Bates play. John Bates is blocking his tail off. Even against the Eagles game, there were times Cornelius Lucas was getting beat so bad that John Bates was pretty much blocking Fletcher Cox one-on-one at times for us to win that game. And then he blocked very well against the Texans. One thing about John Bates, he's going to block well, and if he's open, he's going to catch it for a touchdown. Great game from him. You see 3 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown, you're like, oh, that's all right. No. That man, John Bates, had a huge impact in this game, especially as a run blocker. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that. Logan Thomas had 3 targets, 1 catch, 7 yards. Taylor Heinicke just wasn't able to find him today. And then Cole Turner had 1 target and a drop. That was bad. I mean, Taylor Heinicke was very inaccurate today, but one of the very few times he was accurate, Cole Turner dropped it. But he's just trying to get his rookie nervousness off, I guess, because he was hurt, barely didn't play for the first bunch of games this season, came back. Taylor Heinicke threw him a hospital ball. He ends up falling and getting a concussion, and then now he just came back. He's getting pancaked on special teams. I don't know if y'all saw that. One of those kickoff returns from Antonio Gibson. Cole Turner's getting pancaked by like a DB, I think, or something. Somebody smaller than him for sure. And then he had that 1 drop, so he'll get it right. I believe in Cole Turner. I think he's going to eventually become that red zone threat that we thought he could be, that we saw him be in training camp. He was killing our defense, and look how great our defense has been playing. He was killing our defense. I believe in the talent. It's probably going to take some time or something like that. Then offensive line, y'all went crazy today. Oh my lord, one of y'all best blocking days today, especially run blocking wise, period. That's why Brian Robinson had the higher yards per carry rate, the 5.83 or something like that. Because against the Eagles, we ran the ball for a lot of yards, but we only ran for like 3 yards per carry. Same thing with the Texans. Ran a bunch of times, didn't get a lot of yards, but got the yards we needed for only like 3 yards per carry. Brian Robinson today had 5.83 yards per carry, and that's because there were actually holes this time. We've been running the ball so well these past couple of games. Offensive line blocked fairly well at times, but a lot of it was just Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson carrying people. And Brian Robinson again did that today, but there were actually times where holes were wide open for him and Jonathan Williams today, and Antonio Gibson, I believe, at least once. Like wide open holes to where they're not touched until a certain point. And I talked about this in my stock down, stock up video, and I'm going to do another one this week, of course, as well. But in my stock up, stock down video, I talked about how this offensive line is so inconsistent, and it just sucks that Brian Robinson, I think it's like 49 point something percent of their yards, him and Antonio Gibson, 49 point something percent of both of their yards each have come after contact. That's terrible. That's absolutely abysmal. 50% of your yards should not come after contact in the NFL. Your offensive line has to be better. So today, they were actually better. I'm pretty sure a lot of his yards came after the contact, but it couldn't have been 50% this time because there were actually holes open. And I felt like they kept Taylor Heinicke clean for the most part. There was some great pockets he had today. There were some times where they got dismantled, and Grady Jarrett was killing double teams. I mean, he was just breaking right in between two offensive linemen at times, which was terrible. But at the end of the day, overall, the offensive line played a better game. I won't say a great game necessarily, but definitely better than they blocked against the Eagles and the Texans. Shouts out to them. And the Falcons D-line is not a slouch, you know what I'm saying? So shouts out to the offensive line for stepping up big time in that way. Defensive line-wise, great day overall. I wish we would have set the edge better from Marcus Mariota. And let me go ahead and get this out the way. James Smith-Williams, I think it was the play before or a couple of plays before the game-saving DARON PAYNE tip-up and Kendall Fuller interception. I know a lot of people are mad at him for allowing Marcus Mariota to get away and make it a 2-yard loss instead of a 7 or 8-yard loss. But first of all, just the way fate works and domino effects, butterfly effects, if that play doesn't happen, who knows what happens the next play. Maybe the Falcons call another play and maybe they end up scoring a touchdown eventually instead of an interception. So we got to thank James Smith-Williams, period, for that. But also, James Smith-Williams is getting a lot of hate from the fan base. And if you look at the tape, just overall adjustments-wise, we were getting killed on read option by Marcus Mariota all day. All day, we just weren't setting the edge. I don't know what was going on. And Jay Smith-Williams just at that play said, I'm tired of it. If nobody else is going to make a play, I will. And again, he let Marcus Mariota get away from him, and it ended up being a negative 2-yard loss instead of negative 8. But Jay Smith-Williams, that was a great play from him. I got to give him his credit for that. Can't wait for Chase Young to come back, but that was a great play. And overall, this defensive line made the plays when they needed to. Jonathan Allen had a ridiculous day overall at times. DARON PAYNE, game-saving play, but also even before that, the sack. The drive before that, I believe, or a couple of drives before that. Montez Sweat with a sack as well. Overall, they didn't have like the super dominant day I would hope they have. Because I noticed, I pointed this out during the live stream, there were a lot of plays where some of the Falcons' good rushing plays where there wasn't even like a hole open for them. They just put their shoulders down in the Jonathan Allen or DARON PAYNE's chest or whoever the defensive lineman was at the time that they were targeting. There wasn't even like a hole. It wasn't like the offensive line opened a chasm for them. They just ran straight into the pile of people and then just pushed the defensive line back and got a few more yards. So overall, wasn't a great day, but they made the plays when they had to, and I'm still really proud of those guys because thank goodness for them. Man, again, I want to give James Smith-Williams his credit. I'm not saying he was MVP of the game, but it was like about time somebody adjusted to the read option from the Falcons with Marcus Mariota. About time somebody finally sniffed out the fact that Marcus Mariota may keep the ball to himself. You know what I'm saying? About time, finally. So man, shouts out to that. But yeah, overall the defensive line had great plays, but they also had some bad plays. I expected them to be better against the run than they were, but it is what it is. Jack Del Rio, I feel like it took you a little too long to adjust to getting my boy John Ridgeway out there more. When John Ridgeway was a fifth defensive lineman out there playing nose tackle, it made everybody's jobs easier. They clearly didn't want to throw the ball. Drake London was literally a distraction out there for the most part, and then he was dropping open passes, and we got to take it, man. We got bailed out some third downs that should have been converted for first downs by receivers just straight up dropping passes, just like the Packers game, but we'll still take it regardless. But yeah, man, John Ridgeway should have played more today. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see soon. I'll update y'all on that probably in my stock up, stock down video. But John Ridgeway should have had a career high in snaps today with the way that the Falcons run the ball. And I just felt like Jack Del Rio took a little too long to put him on the field. I understand if you have John Ridgeway on the field, that's less secondary out there or less linebackers, but they're not trying to throw the ball anyway. We need to do everything to stop the run and force Marcus Mariota to win the game with his arm, which it was really hard for him to do. As you saw, he lost the game with his arm at the end. We should have forced that more often throughout the game. And I don't know why Brody's going crazy. I think somebody's at the front door or something. I hope y'all can't hear that. But yeah, man. And then moving on to the linebackers, like I said, Jamin Davis, I don't know if this was his best game ever, but this was his best half ever, his most impactful half ever. The Falcons easily score more than 13 points without him. One of those Marcus Mariota read options where we didn't set the edge. Jamin Davis makes a touchdown saving tackle. Nobody else is anywhere near him. And I felt like he had like 2 or 3 of those alone in this game. Derek Forrest had one as well, but man, Jamin Davis the first half, and I feel like he still played well the second half, but it wasn't as obvious. Like the first half was, boy, if we didn't have Jamin Davis on that play, that's a first down, or if we didn't have Jamin Davis on that play, it's a touchdown. That, I mean, shouts out to him. There's not much more I can say. Again, Jamin Davis, one of the 4 Atlanta guys on his roster. I mean, Alex Armah technically the fullback, but he doesn't play. But Taylor Heinicke, Jamin Davis, Montez Sweat, and Antonio Gibson, I would say Jamin Davis had the best day out of all of the 4 guys from Atlanta playing against Atlanta for the Commanders. Shouts out to Jamin Davis again. We definitely miss Cole Holcomb, John Bostic, David Mayo. Now, that one touchdown David Mayo allowed, first of all, that was a great play call by the Falcons. I'm not even mad at Jack Del Rio. They ran like a nice little play action, and then they rotated everybody to the right, had all of the receivers run to the right as well to make it easier for Marcus Mariota, which of course pulled the defense. And then a tight end blocks in the beginning, then leaks out at the last second, and then wide open for a touchdown. But David Mayo also, I believe, got tripped by the defensive line that play, so that was just a bad play. But overall, David Mayo and John Bostic are not it. At this point, I at least want to see what Milo Eifler can provide, because those 2 guys definitely ain't it. And if Jamin Davis is calling the plays, what's the use of John Bostic? The one positive about John Bostic was that he was a genius pre-snap. Post-snap, horrible. 99 overall pre-snap, 54 overall at best post-snap. But then again, he did have one really good run stop at a point in that game. But outside of that, wasn't good games from the linebackers outside of Jamin Davis. We miss Cole Holcomb. Secondary-wise, they had to make up for the fact that Benjamin St-Juste wasn't out there. And they targeted Christian Holmes. They attacked him at times. They ran the ball towards him. They did everything they could to try to take advantage of the fact that our final pick, our second 7th round rookie that we just drafted a few months ago, second 7th round pick, first time playing in an NFL game, they were going to try to take advantage of the fact that he was out there. But granted, they're a run first team, they're a run first, run second, run third team, honestly. So they didn't really want to throw the ball that much, which was good for us. That's why I said Cole Holcomb was more missed than Benjamin St-Juste. I feel like Benjamin St-Juste has been a better corner than Cole Holcomb has been a linebacker this season for sure. But we missed Cole Holcomb more just because of the way that this game was set up. The Falcons want to run the ball. Cole Holcomb is one of our better run stoppers. Benjamin St-Juste would have loved to have him out there, but they weren't throwing the ball anyway. It's just, I would have preferred him out there again, of course, but they did attack Christian Holmes, but I felt like he held his own. It was nowhere near as bad as I expected. Now, granted, next week going against the Giants, I am a little afraid of Christian Holmes being out there. I would really hope that we get Benjamin St-Juste back for that. I really, really do. But he held his own today. I'm not mad. Kendall Fuller balled out, made a couple of plays, had the game, saving an interception. So obviously Kendall Fuller did his thing today. Wasn't a perfect game, but he played very well. And then outside of that, I'm not even exactly sure who the slot corners were today. I'm assuming Danny Johnson. Again, Bobby McCain is technically your starting slot corner. He's moved away from free safety and pretty much let Derek Forrest have that. But I mean, just from the fact that they barely threw the ball, I didn't even have time or a chance to see who our slot corner was today. So I'm not sure if Danny Johnson played at all, if any. But when in doubt, Bobby McCain was definitely our starting slot corner. But even last game against the Texans, Bobby McCain got most of the snaps as slot corner, but Danny Johnson played a little bit of slot corner as well. And we just straight up don't take Bobby McCain, Cameron Curl, or Derek Forrest off the field. Last game against the Texans, all 3 of those guys played 100% of snaps. And again, sometimes Danny Johnson would come into the game and Bobby McCain would move back to safety. And we would just have 3 safeties and a slot corner out there, which is just crazy. But Jack Del Rio's finding a way to make it work. He's getting creative. But today, I don't know the snap counts yet. We'll talk about that in my stock up, stock down video in a couple of days, maybe tomorrow. But right now, man, I mean, just from what I saw, Cameron Curl, huge in the run game, man. He mostly played in the box from what I saw. Derek Forrest wasn't able to make his huge plays today, but they also weren't able to throw it deep. Now, again, the Falcons are in a good passing game team, but it still takes Derek Forrest, Cameron Curl, and Bobby McCain to go out there and do their part to not allow them to be that good pass attack team. I mean, granted, the running game was working, but there becomes a certain point where the run game is working so well, you hit them with the play action like we did for that John Bates touchdown. And they weren't able to do that. Outside of that one really big play near the end of the game, that final Falcons offensive drive, for the most part, we were able to shut down the passing game, but they were able to run the ball whenever they wanted. Overall, defensively, Jack Del Rio, all of y'all, we did not stop them from running the ball, honestly. We really never did. We made a couple of plays when we needed to, but overall, the Falcons ran the ball how they wanted to, just almost as much as we did on offense. But out of the way, man, shouts out to the defense, because when you only allow 13 points, you did something right. I don't care. Penalties, Falcons selling, whatever. When you, as a defense, when you only allow 13 points, you did something right. And then special teams wise, Tressway is the GOAT, man. That one punt where he fielded it within the 5 with no help. You know, a lot of the times when that happens, it's because the punter punted it in a way to where it went up and he allowed the other special teams players to go and catch it and down it within the 5-yard line. No, Tressway did it himself. It literally bounced at like the 4 and then kind of bounced back to like the 5 or something like that. Legendary punt. One of the best punts I've seen all season from any punter. Almost as good as that one Georgia punt we had a few weeks ago where he punted it like 85 yards and then it went out of bounds at the 1. That was like the best punt I've ever seen in my life. But Tressway was close to that. Joey Sly, Mr. Automatic, wasn't automatic today, Mr. PAT, but he made all his field goals, so you can't be too mad. But I mean, you're the reason why we were having heart attacks at the game. He was 2 for 2 with a longer 45, but he missed one of his 2 PATs. You're the reason we're having heart attacks on that last Falcons drive, because we should be up 7 instead of 6, and maybe they can tie the game, but they shouldn't just be able to outright win it without a 2-point conversion because of Joey Sly's missed PAT. Speaking of Joey Sly's missed PAT, I mean, that second half with the missed PAT and Ron Rivera calling an unnecessary timeout on 3rd and 1 or whatever that led to 4th and 1. We ended up getting anyway, I believe, something like that. And then not challenging the play where I thought Marcus Mariota was down, where that big passing play that I'm talking about happened. It's just like Ron Rivera's situational awareness. I'm not going to dive into it too much because we talk about it almost every week, but it just still continues to plague this team. Ron Rivera's situational awareness, clock management, use of his timeouts. Hire me, man. Pay me like $100,000 a year and I will be the timeout specialist. That's it. I don't have to do nothing else. Just let me tell you when to use timeouts and challenges. I will be your clock manager and your situational awareness coach. Just go ahead and sign me up. I'll fly out there and everything. Yeah, Joey Sly, you got to be better than that. And Antonio Gibson, love what you did in the kickoffs. You still haven't broke one off yet, but I love the explosion, the turn. I mean, I think one of his returns started from 2 yards within the end zone, and he ran it all the way out to like the 30-yard line. I love that. I like what Dax Milne is doing as far as punt returning and not, you know, muffin punts. He doesn't really provide you much explosion, even though he has had a couple of good runs these past couple of weeks. Not today though. Alex Erickson started today. We're gonna talk about that because Dax Milne is hurt. But we like Dax Milne because he doesn't muff punts, and we literally won the Packers and Bears games because of muff punts. But Antonio Gibson provides that explosion that we don't get out of Dax Milne on punt returns. He provides it on kickoffs. I love it. Love Antonio Gibson's move to kickoff return. Shouts out to Brian Robinson. Games like this further prove why we are allowed to even have Antonio Gibson in kickoff returns, because we don't need him to be the premier back. He could be the complimentary guy. I think they should go hand in hand. I think they should really have even carries throughout a game. But when in doubt, if you need Antonio Gibson to really go crazy on kickoffs and you feel like he's going to be fatigued on offense, you have Brian Robinson to carry the load like he did today and carry 5 defenders on his back for first downs. And then, again, Alex Erickson today stepped up big time at punt returner. Didn't do anything special. I think all of his punts were fair catches, and I'll take it. You didn't muff punts. You didn't sell the game. You didn't necessarily win the game for us, but you also didn't sell the game. So I just appreciate that, man. I really thank you, Alex Erickson, for not dropping anything. You're not explosive. I don't expect you to return a kick for a touchdown, but at least you're not selling the game, and I will take that. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Of course, man, I appreciate all of the support, especially all of the support I was getting in the live stream. Everybody that liked the stream, everybody that donated to the stream, all of my sponsors that was there, everybody in the chat talking trash, both Falcons and Commanders fans, even some Cowboys fans. I love that environment. I love the trash talking. I'm always encouraging that. So I appreciate all y'all pulling up and supporting the stream, man. We had like 700 people in there at one time, man. I love it. Shouts out to this win streak, man. Way better for the channel, I tell you that. But yeah, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about this win. Do you agree with a lot of my points? Do you disagree with a lot of my points as far as like Taylor Heinicke, Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio, this defensive line, everything, special teams, offensive line? Let me know, and I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.